That doesn't sound like his number.
And Dick Scouten is on the list over there too, on the participant list.
Oh yeah, I'm promoting him right now, Dick. I see Dale Feek is on this as well.
And just a note, I've gone ahead and started the stream.
Okay, so I'm going to gavel us in for the December 3rd Board of Commissioners Roundtable. This is Chair Catherine Harrington, and I'd like to note that we have Commissioner Pam Treese, Commissioner Jerry Willey, Commissioner Dick Scouten, and we're awaiting Commissioner Roy Rogers. He's not with us yet, but we hope he'll join us soon. This is
This is Dick here. Sorry, there were problems. I've been on the whole time, but you just didn't see me or hear me, so my apologies. So
no worries, no worries. Good morning, everyone. We should probably start by just syncing up on the agenda because there are a few different things that have come up that I think we need to talk about. The one top priority to go over today are two things related to the County Council office. So we have Heather Gantz and other staff members joining us to go over the recruitment. We also have the department overview information from Alan to go over. It would be very timely for us to have a discussion about the upcoming COVID town hall, which will be featuring us as county commissioners. So rather than just my asserting the format of what I think we need, we should discuss that. Also, we should check in on the rolling agenda for the remainder of the month, and that was sent to all of us via email. Then another must do that we need to go over today is item 4 from the agenda, the election recap, and going over discussing the salary commission, and then get into some budget discussions, item 2, 3, and hopefully if we have time, touching on item 5 as well. Does that work okay with commissioners? Terrific. All righty. So why don't we dive right in then with the county council topic and county council recruitment. Welcome, Heather. And I know that our packet included a timeline.
Yes, good morning. Thank you. Wanted to be able to review the timeline with you. I understand from Elizabeth this morning that we need to move the declaring of the vacancy to the December 22nd meeting, so I can make that adjustment. Chair, is that accurate?
That was per the rolling agenda, Tanya, yeah.
I'm confused because it's always been listed on the December 22nd, so.
I had it on the timeline that you'll see that's on the, or that is in the packet for the 15th.
Yeah.
So I just needed to update it to the 22nd. Tanya, is that accurate or?
So, I am unmuted. So we haven't talked about the December 22nd. It can go back to the 15th, the challenge with our 15th meeting. And this is a relatively light item, it's a very full meeting. So that's up to board discussion.
What is the impact of not doing it on the 15th and doing it on the 22nd? Anything?
Yes. Okay.
I apologize if I caused confusion.
If these timelines would please have a date on them, because I am having to look at too many versions of it and they don't have rev marks. And so It's currently slotted for December 22nd. What Heather needs to do is she's got initial information. She needs to go through and have interviews with all of us. And then according to the timeline, we had the declaring the vacancy on the, it would help if somebody who runs this meeting could share the timeline. There were 2 meetings, December 15th and December 22nd. December 22nd is a special meeting to review and discuss the position profile. Right? Could somebody display the timeline document?
If somebody has it, I'm not sure what that looks like, but if somebody has it and can send it to, probably to me or Chuck, we can display it.
I wonder, sorry, I wonder if everyone is aware that Kevin had internet issues because of a tree that was down, and so there was a last minute switch of who's running the meeting. So I think that's one of the things folks are seeing.
And the timeline is in the public packet that is on the Washington County website.
We can pull that up. One moment.
While they are pulling up the document, I will let you know that I had a great conversation with Alan. I also spoke with the sheriff, and then I know I have scheduled meetings with you all next week to engage in conversations after the discussion around Alan's assessment of the department and the needs of the county council office. So I'm looking forward to those conversations next week.
Can everybody see the timeline? Is this what you needed?
I do.
Great.
Does that need to be blown up a little bit for everyone to read in greater detail?
We have control of that on our screens
Great. Okay.
by moving
Wonderful.
the Zoom window.
Great. So the way that we had the initial structured timeline was for the conversations to be happening this week and next week. And as I said, those are on the calendar and scheduled. Looking forward to the ones that are upcoming next week. We originally had on the calendar to declare the vacancy for December 15th and then a special meeting on December 22nd to review and discuss the position profile, collectively discuss any changes and or updates to that document that would then allow us to be ready to go just after the holidays in the beginning of January from a full recruitment standpoint, carrying out the recruitment through January and into February, with the position officially closing February 21st. We would engage in conversations about the candidates with the board on March 2nd. With semi-final interviews the week of the 15th and final interviews just after the spring break holiday at the end of March, and then hopefully engaging in negotiations and offer thereafter. So that is the timeline for the recruitment process, has us negotiating in and offering in the early April timeframe. Any particular questions, concerns, comments on the timeline? And do I need to make any adjustments?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Roy. Sorry about trying to get in. And thank you, Tanya, for sending me the link. I finally, after 15 minutes of playing, I finally got in. But anyway, I know the chair was going to work with Alan in regards to the transition. So,
Roy, that's coming up next on the agenda. You missed the overview on the agenda for today's meeting.
Right, but how, tell me about, I know you're going to skip to and have it in more detail, but how tight is this in comparison to what you're going to bring up under that item? Do we have any flexibility? I just don't know what you have agreed
So
to.
Alan is going to be staying on as the interim,
Okay,
and under the new contract, he'll be working 3 days a week.
okay, no, I understand that, but so I don't have any problem with the schedule as long as I know you've taken care of it, but we have, this works with the schedule that you worked with Alan?
Roy, so the proposed interim contract goes all the way through the end of June.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that,
Yeah,
okay,
so I think that addresses your concern.
right. Yep, no questions then.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments on the
Heather?
time? Yes.
The question that I had is, are all these meetings with commissioners already set up to happen successfully per this timeline?
Yes, correct.
Terrific. So it sounds like we are on track for the milestones that you need for us as commissioners, December 15, 18, and 22.
Yes, we are on track to hit those milestones.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yes. Would you like to move forward on additional questions as it relates to the recruitment, or would you like to transition to Alan's review and a discussion of the assessment?
No, we need to finish going through this timeline so that you've highlighted for all the commissioners where they're the dependency items, meaning where we are involved, and you need to make sure we have that flagged and on our radar. And one particular concern that I think, or one particular item that I know is vital that we learned through the CAO recruitment is making sure that all commissioners know when we're going to have the candidate materials and that we commit to review that before the actual interviews.
Yes, so we have a close date of the recruitment as February 21st, and I'll be engaging in conversations with candidates throughout the course of the recruitment with the plan to send the commissioners candidate materials February 26th in anticipation of our meeting on March 2nd, where we will be then engaging in discussions and conversations about those candidate materials. So again, sending the electronic versions of resumes, cover letters, and any other materials submitted by the candidates on February 26th in anticipation of our meeting on March 2nd.
So with the CAO recruitment, they were, I remember there being notebooks. I can't remember if we got them electronically. Does that work for all commissioners?
If the commissioner has a preference for hard copy materials, I can certainly accommodate that.
This is Dick. Obviously, there's going to be the obvious transition. I think that I will play a very useful role, and I really look forward to providing my thoughts in the month of December about this position. But then as we get towards the end of the month, we obviously need to make that transition to Commissioner-elect Nafisa Faye and get her totally up to speed on all that. So I didn't see that specifically set out, but there's going to be that handoff, obviously. And I would like very much to share and give the county the benefit of my background and experience, having myself been a public agency lawyer, practitioner, and have a lot of years of seeing county council's work and all that. But then at some point I'll be handing it off, and Commissioner-elect Nafisa Faye will be the commissioner, and will be sharing with the rest of you the important decision of making this important hire.
Yep, so the points that you're speaking to, Commissioner Scouten, is relative to the profile that we will be reviewing, discussing, and closing on December 22nd. So later this month, this is where commissioners need to make sure that you are allotting sufficient time in your work days to review that information so that that can be finalized before the end of the year, so that Heather has it. It all looks tremendous, but it's clear and complete for that January posting for the recruitment. Back to the candidate materials. I don't recall if we had them electronically or not. So Commissioners Treese, Willie, and Rogers, this is a time for you to speak up to say if just electronic works for you, or if you need a notebook like we had last time.
If I remember correctly, we used the notebook in the room and then the notebook was taken back. I'm fine electronically.
Electronically?
Yeah, I'm good with electronic as well.
Great. Heather, you got what you need.
Great. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. So in that discussion on the 2nd, I'll be presenting additional information regarding the candidates based on my conversations and interviews and discussions with the candidates. And of course, answering any questions that you have, and we'll engage in a good dialogue around the candidates, their backgrounds, and the value that they would bring to the opportunity. The goal coming out of that meeting on the 2nd is to determine who you all would like to engage in conversations with from a first round interview perspective. We have those tentatively targeted for the week of the 15th. We need to determine a date and time for that meeting, so yet to be determined. And once we do that, we'll of course get that on the calendars. But that would be a semifinal interview with the Board of County Commissioners and any others that are identified by you all that want participation in that round of interviews. Not being sure where we will be in our current environment, those could very well be virtual or otherwise, depending upon our advancements and or not with regards to our current health environment. So a little bit of to be determined there, that we would need to continue to engage in discussion and dialogue about the best approach for those interviews. Yes, Chair.
So if we go back to the second page in the share window. Thank you. Heather, I just wanted to highlight that I'm also involved with the search for the Washington County Visitors Association CEO position. And so right now we have the two schedules interleaved. They're not overlapping. So I'm hopeful that that will hold. But I just wanted to make sure that I shared that with you and with the board as well. I'm not looking forward to the month of March at this point. It's going to be pretty darned intense with semifinal interviews, final interviews, and then coming to decisions on two very key positions. This, of course, the county council one being the absolute one of importance to us as an agency and a board.
I have something to throw out as well. I haven't really thought this out, so bear with me for a moment. But I've had the pleasure of working with Dick for 20 years, and I've really respected his legal background and some of the information that he brings to the table, not on a regular basis, but when we need it. And it seems like he's going to be working with us through December, but there's room in here for some outside folks to participate at a certain point. And frankly, I will talk only for myself. I don't know what the rest of you feel like, but I have the ability to look and evaluate somebody based upon how I feel that they'll fit with a group, but I don't have the legal background to understand exactly what they know and don't know and how they might interpret what we deal with. So I'm just throwing out an idea. Is there any room for a former commissioner to help guide us in any part of this process. And Dick may be throwing things at me, and I can't see it, but I just want to throw that out.
Well, I'll say that I am far more comfortable in having general counsels from other public agencies, as well as our own attorneys help with some of that legal probing versus having a county commissioner, a former county commissioner such as Dick, with legal experience outside of our county work, participate in that. But you are right to note that in the final interviews and others as identified, as well as in the semifinalists, and we haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
Well, for myself, that's really all up to you. I'm perfectly happy to help. I'm also perfectly happy to do other things in my life outside of that. That's partly why I'm retiring. So it's a matter of indifference to me. I'm happy to help, but I'm not going to be put out by if you preferred that not participate. So it's up to you. It's happy to help, but it's fine if you don't want to involve me as well. I can understand. So thank you.
If I could interject, at least having gone through the experience of Washington County and the city of Beaverton for the top spot, that on both those interview panels, there were senior outside government attorneys on the panel who knew me, knew the people, knew the other people. So it is a good suggestion.
Well, I'll just finish up by saying I do agree that we ought to have some outside experts, and I appreciate, Dick, your comments. If I just thought maybe your vast experience with this organization, 20 years, might be helpful in some point of giving us some additional information. But if you're ambivalent about it, I certainly respect that.
No, I'm not really ambivalent about it. I'm more than happy to help, but either way, how you collectively make that decision, I'm perfectly happy with it. I just want to not make it awkward for any of you. Thanks. I'm very happy to help, though.
Process-wise, what I would like to suggest is that commissioners give this some thought and send a list of ideas to Heather Gantz, and we can close on that in our future meetings, because we have time.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Following the semifinal interviews on the 15th and through feedback for the stakeholder groups that as we identify them and participate along with your interaction with the candidates, the idea would be to further narrow down the group of individuals that we want to continue to engage in conversations with, doing that the week of the 29th, which is the week following Oregon spring break, so we can avoid any potential vacations and or challenges with those individuals that enjoy time off during that week. So again, the end of March, we would be looking at doing some additional interviews, of course, with the board, as well as, again, any other individuals as identified, including county council staff. Any questions, any concerns about those identified opportunities for board participation?
I've given our experience with Novak with the CAO interviews, I have a high degree of confidence in this timeline, and I think it's going to work out really well. But there's also logistically, we're setting things up so that if for some reason there's, some super surge of COVID or something untoward that extends this, Alan is being very flexible, and I'm grateful for it, to ensure that we have county council coverage while we're going through this process. Are there any other needs that the commissioners have with regard to the sequencing of this, or for good logistics?
Well, you just touched on it briefly now. I'm really appreciative of Alan's willingness to extend his contract work up to, I understand, June, which will give you the kind of coverage you need to make sure that this is all done and there'll be a good transition to the permanent council. So thank you for that, Alan.
I know another thing that I appreciated about how we went through the CAO search process was having the interview, the face-to-face interview, at least I don't remember the semi-final interviews to the same degree or the discussion, but I remember Catherine Tuck Parrish facilitated a discussion. It went, from my standpoint, pretty smoothly because we were all there in the room together, which I think goes more smoothly than, having us all in these Jeopardy squares or Hollywood Squares boxes. So that's something to think about. And then also having the final interviews in a different facility was helpful as well. And then Alan was really helpful in getting the final contract negotiated, and I'm not sure how we go about that with a new county council candidate, but I'm sure that someone from his staff will help us with that. Tanya, go ahead.
So I would suggest in that case, we lean on Eva Labonte and Paul Hathaway to help with that process.
Well, as long as Paul isn't the candidate.
That's contingent on that, yes.
I know, I was going to say Paul, and then I realized, well, but what if Paul is the person? And I was like, then we'll find somebody else on staff. So thank you.
Yeah. Want to throw out another idea, and I just again, I haven't thought this out entirely, but Diane may want to chime in. But it seems that Jerry Linder just went through this process with us in regard to hiring of Diane here. It seems like yesterday. It's been, I guess, a little over a couple of years. But is there no amount of assistance that our other council on the other side might give to be an impartial? Obviously, he's not applying for this job, and that he might be able to give us as a backup assistant on that. So just a thought.
Yep. So Heather, put that on your list of ideas.
It was my understanding that Paul Hathaway was not vying for this position, but assuming for a moment that is the case, I just want to share with the board that I had an experience with a project that ended up not being successful in the final analysis. It was the Tri-County Safety Net Enterprise. It was a Tri-County attempt to try to be more efficient about medical services and doctor services. Didn't work out. We had also some federal funding for it. And I got very concerned about possible liabilities that the county might have to face because of some of those issues and the federal funding and the strings attached and the qualifications, et cetera. So I worked pretty closely. Then Susan Irwin, the department head of Health and Human Services, and myself and Paul worked to make sure that we didn't have legal problems. And I was very impressed with Paul. I spent a lot of time with him then. He's a really good, he's got a good legal mind, and he's very stable and very thoughtful, and he would be a great choice if he's not, if he isn't disqualified because he himself is vying for that position. I have a lot of respect for Paul Hathaway.
Yeah, Paul's a very stable genius. No, he's a really great guy, but I do not, he's not expressed to me any interest in it, but you never know. So.
I feel very well served by all of the members of Alan's team. Elmer Dickens, as well as Paul Hathaway, Courtney, Kim, Brad. I mean, they're all great legal minds and are very good at what they do. And I'm grateful to have them on the team. So.
Just a little bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
One little bit of historical background. Paul did apply for the job when you were hired, Alan. As you know, he was a finalist.
It was awkward because me and Paul were friends. He was the Jefferson County Council in Madras, and I was the Crook County Council in Prineville. So we became good friends then. So
I thought Paul.
But we will no doubt have further conversations about Alan and the current team as we move over to discuss the.
Well, let me just finish up something I wanted to say, Catherine. Just a final note here with Paul. Paul handled himself very well in that transition to Alan. And Paul also has a lot of HR and contract services background. So he has some particular, I think, portfolio expertise. Thanks.
So commissioners, is there anything else with regard to the timeline and needing to have discussion with Heather here? Awesome. Terrific. Anything else you need, Heather?
No, just thank you for your continued partnership. Looking forward to the conversations with those I haven't spoken with next week.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with regard to county council and interim, I know that our staff drafted up a contract. I sent them some questions. I haven't heard back from them yet. I'm hoping that they'll close on my questions and that draft contract can then be shared with you county commissioners, and then we can go about adopting it. So stay tuned on that. So beyond that, we have Alan's department overview information. He sent us all an email to help fill us in on the state of affairs on his team. I know I have been drilling him for the last several months about the case count, the number of complaints they handle, and really what does the data tell us? And so he's done a nice job of giving us that analysis. So take it away, Alan.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Catherine. It was about 2 weeks ago where I sent out a memo that had my analysis of the office and some statistical data. And let me preface this, we're asking for some additional staff there, but earlier the week I heard from our finance director that our budget cuts are going to be asking for 2%. So I just wanted to acknowledge that right off the bat, that there will be some budget concerns. But so yes, we were feeling that we were getting busier and busier, and it's, especially with litigation, it's hard because you get some, really a slew of very difficult, time-consuming cases, and it takes up all your time, and then these get resolved, and then, so it goes up and down, but there has been a steady increase over the years in the amount of work and the amount of litigation, we continue to expect that to go up. And so also, we did some analysis of our fellow jurisdictions and their staffing levels. And it's always difficult to compare apples and oranges, but that's the best analysis we can come to. And compared to them, it looks like we are understaffed. And so that's why when I went through there, I made some recommendations for additional staff. So as you know, we are going through transition. I'm leaving. We have Chris Gilmore, who has departed to Multnomah County. And so we'll be filling his spot. And we also had On Wynn. She's a 28-year employee who is retiring in February. And so we are recruiting for both of those spots. And we actually got a good crop for On spot, and we're still waiting to hear what we get for Chris's. So on my recommendation, you'll see that I'm looking for a completely new position as a attorney to do solely litigation. And that will do a number of things. One, will help us from, avoid us from hiring outside counsel. As you can see, we spent $470,000 in the last 3 years on outside counsel, you know, partly due to conflicts, but mostly due to we just didn't have the bandwidth to handle those cases. And we, you know, obviously worked with Eva and the CAO on making those decisions. And so this attorney, I predict, would be doing employment litigation and litigation involving the sheriff's office, which is one of the more difficult and time-consuming types of litigation we have. Both those things are, employment litigation is extremely document heavy. They like to do giant fishing expeditions and go through huge amounts of data to find, you know, telltale signs of discrimination or bad behavior on other employees. So there's that new position. And also, and talking with the sheriff's office, they would like to have at least 2 people dedicated to them, and not just the litigation, but to provide them services. As the memo points out, they're probably one of the most intensive users of our services, and they're also the department that creates the most claims. Obviously, when you have all those deputies driving around fast and having to take care of difficult people, you're going to get a lot of claims from that. So right now we have Elmer doing that almost full time, but he also actually has been involved in a fair amount of litigation and also doing work for ITS. He's our expert in in that technical field. So we're hoping to get Elmer, get him some help so he can devote more time. And we also had Brad transitioning into the sheriff's office. And so he was going to be working half-time for the sheriff's office. But with the COVID that came up, Brad's duties were subsumed by his other client, HHS. So Kim was help backfilling at the sheriff's office, which was taken away from her litigation time. So Kim is now our primary litigator, and we are going to be asking for a second position to, again, help with the sheriff's office and to help with the housing. Paul is stretched pretty thin. As you know, he does the work for all the employment, which has been extremely time consuming. And he's also represents our housing department. So with the new programs coming on board with supportive housing and the housing bond program, his time is being sucked up, stretched awfully thin. That's why I'm recommending another mid-level, not a litigator, but a counsel position. I want to let you know that I did talk to all my staff about this, and I quizzed them and asked for their opinions on that. And this is the memo is a consolidation of that. I also conferred with Eva and Tanya and the chair about this as well. And so I got their input before I made this recommendation. The other thing I wanted to point out is both Paul and Elmer are Tier 1 PERS eligible. They both have 30 years of time in the service, and so they could retire tomorrow and full benefits. So they have expressed to me that they want to continue to keep working, but I'm concerned that if one or both of those retire, there'll be a huge talent gap. And so bringing these other, the 2 people on board will help that, but I'm also would like you to consider hiring a third person, basically as a preventive measure and sort of to help grow the organization and be able to get trained up on those expertise that my current staff have and be able to fill in on that. And finally, in my memo, I mentioned that I'm interested in helping out and continuing as the interim. I have been talking to Eva and made some changes to that. I was initially going to run it to the end of May, but they asked I go to the end of June, so I'm happy to do that. But I am very eager to retire, so I am only interested in working the 24 hours and keeping the rest of my contract the same, the existing salary. There will be a lot of little nuts and bolts in there. I try to keep the contract I proposed as simple as possible, but hopefully it'll only have to run for 4 months, and you'll have a new council, and that new council I expect to weigh in heavily on my recommendations. But in the interim, I'll be working with the CEO and finance on preparing a budget along the lines of the direction I received today. So I'm here for any questions.
Yeah, I have a question, not a question, but Alan, would you be kind enough to just provide sort of a bottom line summary of the number of positions that you're looking for and the type of positions you're looking for that you would recommend for your department?
Absolutely. So 1, a litigator. 2, a general counsel person to help with the sheriff and housing, and also I imagine employment. And 3, another position to basically just get up to speed and be ready to take over when Paul and Elmer retire.
Okay, thank you.
Alan, I'm a little confused by
well,
that.
I'm
Is
sorry, I
the
missed
summary,
one.
because there were 5.
I missed one, and that was a claims investigator. Thank you, Chair. I was focusing on the attorneys. The other one is the claims investigator, and I've talked with Eve about this. So we get, I think we got like 170 tort claims. It's on the attachment there, but a lot of tort claims. Each one of those claims requires us to be investigated. Obviously, some more important than others. If we had one claim, we got a lawsuit just last week where some guy claimed he was being served pork surreptitiously, and as a Muslim, that was very offensive to him. I've learned that we haven't served pork in the jail for years, but anyway, so that one probably won't require a lot of investigation. But we do get a lot of claims, and we have to do the investigations, and so as I outlined in that, there's a number of areas where they would investigate, and that would be for tort claims, as I mentioned, non-employee witness interviews. This would be help to keep those documents that are not privileged. And so right now we have our attorneys interview these people, and that can create conflicts where they become witnesses to the case, and so they may be conflicted out. And also, we'd like to have this person be able to do. Right now, when we have attorneys do the investigation, they can't do. They won't be able to testify because they're the attorney. So we want to have an investigator who's competent and appears well and can go up on the stand and testify as to their investigation. We also have a policy for critical incidents investigations. Like recently, we had a death at Hag Lake, a tragic death of the boating accident, and we investigate those because we often get lawsuits out of those, and we would like to have an in-house person do that. Right now, we usually contract out someone to do that. And then employment investigations. It'd be nice to have, I know Eva was particularly interested in having assistance on doing this employment investigation. So the summary is the excluding On and Chris's position is the litigator, the general counsel, and the additional attorney for continuity, and finally an investigator. And the investigator, as I proposed in my memo, does not have to be my office. We think we prefer it there because we'd have close contact and work closely with them, but we'd be happy if they were just at risk as well, as long as we have access to them and they can free up attorney time to actually do legal work and not do investigation. Yes, Pam?
Thank you, Alan. I have two questions. One on your PDF that gives the hours and the dollars. It's the litigation by year, and it looks like the most recent year it jumped around 15 to 20%, and the others were more static. Is there a reason there? What are your thoughts about that? I'm looking at the numbers between 2015 and 2020.
Yeah, that, as I preface my statement, that goes up and down, but it just seems to be going steadily upwards over the years. I mean, I think society is becoming more litigious. People are more aware of their rights, and particularly it seems like employment issues are being the plaintiff's lawyers are taking a harder line, and so I just see a trend going up, and I mean I think it's across the United States, not just in Washington County. So.
Okay, it just looked to me like the increase was really in the last year. The other question that I have is, as far as the investigative piece, are we better off in your, it seems to me that we're also weighing whether or not our credibility slips if we have an internal investigator versus an external investigator.
And that's a very good point. And as you know, we have hired external investigators for that very reason on on other, like the Jillian Robinson, that's all public. Because of the claims that were sensitive nature, we did hire an outside investigator. And I imagine for particularly difficult and egregious claims, we might still do that. But I think the vast majority of those we could do with an in-house investigator, and for those reasons I outlined in the memo.
Okay, I'm just registering my concerns about public confidence in what we're doing these days as increasing. So thank you.
I have a couple of questions I'm sorry, Jerry, if you want to.
Yeah, no, for you, Alan, I would like, you've got 5 positions here, I think. You've given us, as Pam referred to, the PDF on how much we've spent on outside counsel. I'd kind of like to have, and not at this moment, but I'd kind of like to have a prioritization of, if you had to pick and choose, which one of these are the most critical and which one of these would eliminate the most money saved by not using outside counsel, by having one of these people on staff. So I'm just trying to see what a real budget impact would be on that if we could reduce outside counsel.
Right. So I can give you that right now. Number one, they're listed in order on there. Number one would be the litigator, because that's where we spend the most outside counsel. Number 2 would be the general counsel for the to help out with Paul and Elmer in the sheriff's office and the housing. Number 3 would be the attorney for continuity and to just basically free up more bandwidth for everybody and for when people retire. Number 4 would be the investigator. So that is my priority, Jerry.
Okay, so again, relating that to that we're using outside counsel to fill in for these gaps, what kind of a cost savings would we recognize if we had this person or these positions?
Let me try to pull that document up. There it is. So for the outside firm, the investigator would probably be about a quarter of that saving. So we would save money definitely if we hired the investigator as well. There may be an occasion where it's a sensitive enough investigation that you want to have a neutral third-party investigator. But again, I think the vast majority, we could do those in-house.
Okay. Okay, so Roy, go ahead.
A couple of things, Alan. It was one, I'm going to follow up a little bit on what Jerry was doing in regard to budgetary. But the first one is, when you're working 3 days a week, And I suspect that you're a young enough man, you're not going to decide to go sit on the beach someplace. You're going to be doing some work. The contracts with us, I suspect, will include causes that prevent us from any conflicts. I mean, you're not going to be representing, I know the bar doesn't allow you to do that, but I mean, is that after you leave as well? Will there be some clause that you won't deal with clients that have had ongoing issues with the county?
Right. Well, Roy, the legal ethics would prevent me from doing that regardless of anything in the contract. I would be putting my bar license at jeopardy if I tried to represent people who had any kind of conflict with the county. So I certainly won't be doing that. In all likelihood, I will not start my practice. I am intending to practice after I retire, but in all likelihood, I've had people asking me to do jobs, but I probably will not do that. And they certainly wouldn't do anything that would conflict with Washington County and put my bar license at jeopardy. And so I'm more intending to, when I fully, after this contract with you expires, then going out and working and for the local government community. And I'm not intending to represent private interests, like people who are making applications for subdivisions in Washington County. My intention is to represent local government. There's a lot of work out there that needs to be done for smaller jurisdictions, and I'm sure I could do it to help them out and keep life interesting.
My second and more budgetary, thank you. I knew you were going to say that, and I just thought it might be nice to be on the record so that everybody's comfortable.
Okay.
The second one, more important, is that, remember, we always talked about your department being a governmental service as well as an enterprise fund. In an enterprise fund or an internal service fund, however we want to title it, is that you charge other departments for the cost. And it was far cheaper than to go to the outside. So I'm wondering on these new positions, and it's kind of a follow-up to Commissioner Willey's point, is that if we're adding and simply recharging it to other departments, didn't we just add to the budget, or is there budgetary amounts in other departments that are presently paying those salaries and aren't being utilized? So I'm trying to understand the mechanics of the accounting of it.
Right. So we do charge out, I think our rate is $204 an hour. And we are treated like any other service department, like finance or HR. And we just allocate how many hours that go to that department, and that is allocated as part of their budget. So it is not, we don't write down 6 hours for working on the Cornell Pass Road project anymore. We do to the department budgeting budget, and so that's how our costs are dispersed. So it is. I still believe it's quite cost effective. $200 an hour for an attorney's time is cheap by these days rates, and so and plus the availability and accessibility of your in-house attorney is a great deal. So does that answer your questions, or something more specific?
No, to follow up on that, I'm just trying to understand, and I think that Commissioner Willey, he is doing what we're all doing. We know we got a tight budget this coming year. How many positions are funded and all that sort of thing. In the departmental budgets that you're charging to, are there additional amounts that have not been charged and that these positions would be covered by, budget line items, or would this all be new?
It probably would all be new. I mean, I imagine there is some additional hours that some of my overworked attorneys are putting in that would be subsumed in this, but I would imagine a lot of this would be new.
Okay.
Commissioner Rogers, I can speak to that too. Overall, this would be considered new expenditures. One county counsel position I do want to highlight is the attorney that Alan referred to would be working on housing matters. The SHS levy could offset a portion of that attorney cost, which is in essence new money that will be coming to the county as soon as we finalize the LIP and IGA. So there is a small offset.
And I also want to mention that the casualty fund would handle the most of the expense of the litigation attorney. And so that, is established every year on how much money is put in there.
Yeah. The other thing I think we all kind of understand instinctively is that the cost savings and the time efficiencies for an attorney in-house that knows all the players really well, has worked with them in the past, understands how those departments work, just have a good grounding in all of the factual background almost instinctively because of the time that they've been working at the county. A lot of that you have to kind of start from zero when you bring in someone from the outside. They don't know the players, they don't know how the county operates, they don't know how the department works. They're not familiar with the geography or the setting or the place and the times and all that. So there's just a lot of efficiencies that involve with bringing it, using in-house as much as possible, and so.
Alan, or wait, Commissioner Rogers, did we get to all of your questions right now? Okay. So Alan, I have one more question that I'm not sure I've understand fully, and that is on page 3. You also recommend resources on technical support to our litigators. And I don't know if this is just an ITS service that is more specific to your department, if this is just dollars for some new mechanisms or what. So I'd like to understand what you're asking for there.
That is an extremely difficult question. We have been struggling for 20 years about how to deal with electronic records, and we've come up with solution after solution, and we are getting better at it, but it is still an intractable problem, and electronic records keep changing. As you know, as I mentioned there, text messages is one of the more difficult records to deal with. We have policies that you're not supposed to send text unless they're being retained by a Tiger text system. I can tell you that is a difficult policy to enforce. Older people like myself, we are not that used to using text, and but the younger people, that's all they do. And so we need to come up with some solutions, and it should be agency-wide, but there are some more targeted solutions that we could apply, I believe, to our litigation that would help us manage those documents. But I said, particularly the text messages has become problematic, and just the volume of emails and how to get at those and sort those. So, I put that in there, particularly for the text messages, but just to raise the awareness of that this is an ongoing problem agency-wide, and it's not just for our office for our litigation, but it's also for public records. And so, we have tools, but they need to be refined.
So I have a couple of more verification questions, confirmation questions, but they come also in the form of several comments. I really appreciate your having caught up with the data and laying out your assessment. All throughout this memo, you recognize that, as I have observed as chair, this agency was ramping up its staffing going back to about 2017 to adjust to population growth. But that same level of analysis and need had not been applied to the legal department. And then now, thanks to you and your team, we have the opportunity to look at the case rate, the complaint rate, the real numbers that show us these trends of increasing workload in addition to the population trends. We also know as a board that in 2019, by the mid 2019 in May, we had a real red warning flag. I know I inquired about where we stood with retirement planning, and we learned as a board that that was something new to this agency. And your department is, and your assessment really shines a lens on that. So all this work that you're outlining is really different than the load that has come by virtue of COVID. And I appreciate that you expanded on the comparator information with other counties here in Oregon. So thank you for doing that from the prior version. I applaud how you have hired a range of diverse employees as well. And I really appreciate how you've described the scenario and laid out the frog syndrome as well. But a very clear message that it's time to modernize and improve the county council's office, and I fully support that. I appreciate the clarity of the number of positions and the focus of them. Originally, I thought there might be 5 different positions, but you've been very clear here, it's 4. I don't see any of these as optional positions. In fact, I really appreciate that you and your team are moving forward with the 2, I'll call them backfill positions. That's very important. But I also think that you need to bring in that continuity position. Because of the load, it is unreasonable to have Paul and Elmer, particularly with this heavy caseload that's going on. So I'm hopeful that we as a board have the opportunity to entertain a supplemental budget so that you and your team can get going now on hiring an additional team member. And that we don't wait for the 2 gating item. One is having a new county council on board, but the second is having the positions all accounted for through the proposed budget. These are 4 critical positions. These are not positions to ramp into. These are 4 critical positions for reducing costs and making up for how we've really been stealing from Peter to pay for Paul over these many years. We're at a very critical juncture. And Alan and his team have been bearing the burden of this, as well as our budget in handling outside costs. And frankly, it's only going to take a couple more complaints and lawsuits for the house of cards to fall. And I don't think any of us want that. So I accept and recognize that this is a department that has been underinvested in. And I really, really sincerely appreciate the work that you've put in, Alan, as well as week in, week out, month in, month out, have the dedication and public service that your department members have to ensuring that the work gets done for the agency. So I just want us to move forward with due haste.
And so, Chair, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. And that is like one of the, I guess, one of the big questions, and I have chatted with C about this, is whether it's going to wait for the next budget or you're interested in trying to do a supplemental budget for this. And so I will await.
So that is a board decision, okay?
Yes.
I'm proposing here.
So I'm gonna wait, I will wait as instructed.
Yep. So I appreciate that you're having these conversations with members of CAO staff. But I think we as a board have to recognize, and I saw a thumbs up from Roy, recognizing that the time is now and we need to get moving. What are other commissioner thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything that you've, in your summary, Catherine, was a good summary of the situation, and I would agree with that assessment. I would just add that working in government, working in governmental law, public agency law is a little bit of a calling, I think. Certainly people get paid well compared to salaries out there, generally speaking. It's a good occupation, it certainly pays well, but it's not nowhere near as lucrative as doing corporate law work in a big law firm in a big city, nothing like that. So there's a little bit of a calling there, and I'm very confident we can find good people for that. And I do agree with your assessment. And I've been impressed over the years with the quality of the lawyers, and they indeed, as in my own personal experience, they're all people with a calling to do this work, and they get paid well. But when we hire outside counsel, it's just necessarily more expensive to begin with. So, end the sentence. Thank you.
The only thing
Thank you, Dick.
the only thing I would correct is I don't think that the pay is exactly equivalent to the private industry. They would make more in private industry. So it's something that they dearly love. And Alan, you and I have had private conversations before. You've done a great job, and we certainly all owe you a debt of gratitude. So I don't question that. One question, you may want to take it offline, but as this work is compounded, and I think various board members have kind of talked about that, as the work compounds, usually what you do is you start losing staff. They get a little tired of being on the squirrel wheel too long. Can you give, and I know you're working with the chair, and I certainly encourage, maybe that's the direction I ought to go, if you could give some feedback on that to her, so we don't all of a sudden say that that's nice, new county council. By the way, you got 4 more positions to fill because we've kind of worked the others to death. And so
We're here.
Yeah, maybe you can share that with her. And I
We're
agree.
at that point.
And I have talked to her about that, and I will continue to keep her informed on that. Thank you, Roy. And thank you, Dick. I think it is a calling, and your staff right now, they are all dedicated to public service, and that is something that I've always looked for in hiring people, some demonstration of that. So.
Commissioners Treese and Willie, anything to add?
No, I don't have anything more to add. This has been a great discussion. I've taken several notes. I'll probably follow up, Alan, with you a little bit on some more of the particulars of that, but this has been a great discussion. So thanks for that.
Commissioner Treese?
I agree with Commissioner Willie, and I certainly recognize the constraints that the department has and our budgetary constraints at the same time. So, though that's our job, is to work through these issues.
And I'm certainly available for any calls. Give me a call. I'm happy to chat about any issues or details of this discussion.
So to summarize, we have this information going into the proposed budget. Alan, you and your team will move forward with the litigator replacement and the, am I correct in the paralegal replacement? I want to make, okay. And, but in addition, I would ask, it sounds like there's sufficient board support to move forward with an additional hiring. So we'll work on the supplemental budget for that. And we'll use this information to help build out the proposed budget needs as well. I did have, do you have what you need in order to move forward with those recruitments, Alan?
Yes, so just to clarify, do you want me to move forward with all 4 3, 2, or 1?
Well, we need to make sure that all 4 are covered in the proposed budget.
Okay. Yep.
It would be wonderful. What I want to make sure is that at a minimum, we get you going on one of the 4 ASAP.
Okay.
ASAP in the
Great.
first quarter of 2021. I don't
Great.
know
I'll get
what
the-
budget. I don't know what budget flexibility we have in order to move sooner on all 4. And as you said, it would be good for a new hire to be able to make all those decisions. But what I clearly understand from this final memo, as well as this discussion, is that with the current load, we are at risk of losing other folks or additional retirements. And I don't think we can afford to wait to get at least another legal hand on board to navigate through the first half of the year. And that's why I asked the board to support getting moving now on that supplemental budget in this fiscal year to move forward with that.
Okay, I'll work on getting the supplemental budget to get that litigator position going as soon as possible. Thank you.
Commissioner Treese?
I just want to add that while I support this, I think we need to be considering what our communication is to employees around the issue, especially in regard to what's happening in LUT at this point. So it's more just about making sure that our communications are solid to our organization as a whole. And Tanya, I'd look to you for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would just add that we're going to have to pay one way or the other, and what we don't want to do is be reactive. We get some big litigation coming in, and then we've got to scramble to bring in outside counsel. And I know from my past experience, it just takes one big case to really blow up the whole dynamics in the law office, and so.
The other thing, Alan, I wanted to make sure we have a good summary here for the board members going into the new year, 2021. Alan will continue to be here to work with us. So he will be present for our Tuesday meetings, for our once a month Thursday roundtables. He is still there for your phone calls. He will continue to work with the team to make sure that the cases are moving forward, that personnel, that day-to-day, week-to-week personnel management is happening. I know I'm very grateful for him continuing in this role, while I also support him getting to his final point of retirement as quickly as he wants. So, but I just want to assure you that we're all trying to pull together to make sure that all the bases are covered. Alan, is there anything more you wanted to add to that? And commissioners, any other comments?
No, I think that's very good, and I appreciate that. And I hope your hiring process goes fast. So, and I'll work with our consultant to help out on that as much as I can. And I certainly will be available. I am going to be working reduced hours, but I will be doing as much as I can to take the burden off my existing staff. So
I'm just impressed, Alan. You're going to do all of those things 3 days a week. I've been wondering why we hired you full time all this time. You could do all of that in 3 days. Wow.
I won't be doing it all, Roy.
Actually, Roy, I thought the 3 days he agreed to was actually one more than he's been working. So I thought we got an increase there.
You found me out.
So I think that Tanya, did you have a comment that you wanted to add?
Thank you, Commissioner Treese. I just want to respond to the communications. We are working on communications for the organization because we are hearing questions arise from the LUT and the voluntary separation program, which will commence next week in LUT. So that is starting to have lend itself to conversation. I think the analysis that Alan did will be able to speak to what the business purpose for these positions are, as well as there will be budgetary savings from hiring external counsel as well. So confident we can message this in partnership with County Council to the organization.
Thanks. I just think it's important to get out in front of it so that we're not dealing with the employee questions after the fact, or we will always deal with them, but at least there's a chance to communicate early.
Just one final comment. A press release that Philip helped prepare went out about my retirement. I wanted to thank the chair for her gracious comments on that press release. So thank you.
Catherine, you're muted.
Thank you. One of the memo that you well earned on that quote. Well earned, Alan. The memo that you sent to us is marked confidential attorney-client communication. We've been referring to the memo and the details of it here in a public meeting, and we are likely to do so as we move forward in our budget discussions. So with regard to the packet and the record for this meeting, do we put it in as marked as such, or what?
No, I believe we had a conversation about that. I always mark those confidential, and it's up to the client to decide. And by having this as a public and open discussion and not an executive session, it is now publicly disclosable. There's nothing in there that is a real client secret. So I'm not concerned about sharing that. People make requests.
Yep. Thank you. I wanted to make sure we went through noting that for the board's benefit. So, okay, are there any other questions with regard to County Council here in the month of December and moving through the first half of the year? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Alan, and everyone for going over that. I really appreciate it. I'd like to recommend at this point that we touch on 3 items that are not on the posted agenda, but are very pertinent to where we find ourselves now. And the next one is about the COVID town hall. So little context on where this comes from is we have a new set of state metrics at the same time that we have numbers of community spread that are in the toilet. We have been a very supportive board in supporting the science and supporting our team. And it feels like just about every single week we enable our team to present information to the public. What we've been lacking is having the opportunity for our public to ask questions and to see us in response to their questions and information needs. So I recognized as we had the announcement of the new state metrics, I asked the CAO and her team to arrange for us to have just our second ever COVID town hall this year. And so logistically, that's being set up for December 12th. I don't know if any of you have watched the various town halls that the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners have. They have them on a regular basis, at least once a month. And it has helped considerably with their community getting to see that they are on top of these different issues and have the opportunity to ask questions and hear from commissioners about their thoughts, what they've been grappling with. And frankly, you've all done a terrific job of ensuring that we are supportive of our community. I mean, looking at it, we've got tremendous investments we've been making in public health, but also for our economy and supporting businesses throughout our community. That is stellar work. So we have those logistics, but I want to make sure that our staff hears directly from us so we don't end up having a forum where it's just staff report, staff handling questions, staff handling questions. I mean, this is a town hall with commissioners. So I'm happy to continue to work directly with staff to make sure the logistics are set up in a way that I think works for board members, but I wanted to make sure to give you the opportunity to share your thoughts and discussions here. So commissioners, what do you think? Saturday, December 12th, 10 to noon.
Catherine, have you or has anyone thought through the facilitated process?
Well, what we have is the experience of the community investment conversations where staff handled all of the questions off to the side. I did go back. We had our only town hall of this year was on May 11th. And there were questions that I handled on camera, but then there were also questions for drawing in from the staff. The early draft run of show for this, once again, has public health out front and center, which causes me concern. I want to make sure that this is the opportunity for the board members. Now, certainly the new metrics are not ours, right? They're defined by the state, and the public health numbers are collected by our county public health and the state and are released as such. But I do know at a week-to-week level, we are involved for navigating through how we get through it as a community. And so it's important to me to hear how you want to be involved.
I guess the reason I'm asking the question is I think that Marcus did a really good job in handling the flow of questions and directing the questions and staying on topic. And I think that I'm hoping that we have a similar plan in place for this discussion as well. I'm supportive of doing this in that environment.
As I've indicated, I can't be there on the 12th, but I'm hopeful there'll be enough for the rest of you.
I'm planning on being there.
Good.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll definitely be there, of course.
As will I. I must admit I have some concerns about what kind of response we're going to get. As we have experienced the listening sessions regarding the budget, it was a two-edged sword on that. I thought we got some great input and some great feedback. And then, of course, we got those who basically wanted to take over the budgetary process. And the same thing with our first listening sessions. I think we had a number of frequent flyers in those that wanted to get their point across and wasn't nearly as concerned about, I guess, us hearing what they had to say as much as us doing what they wanted us to do. So I'm a little bit concerned about this, but we'll see how it works.
Well, I've been positioning that this town hall is the opportunity for our community to get a quick overview of the new metrics, where we stand. We certainly don't need to go over what the state numbers are, but just make sure that folks know the new metrics have this risk model, right? And that we're in extreme risk. There's this weekly snapshot that the state does, and that the numbers that we have, as the graph has shown us, I'm not doing a very good job of drawing a graph here visually, but we're not over that peak yet, as much as we want to be. and that we all need to hang in there. There are some key messages that I will be sharing with the community, and that is that we, from my vantage point, we share two really important common goals. One is preserving our healthcare system. And right now it's at risk, right? I mean, you only have to watch the news for that. But the second is getting our kids back to school. And we all want that. We do have newfound hope with the validation on vaccines. And as we know, I didn't see it in the rolling agenda, but supposedly, as Marnie said last Tuesday, or this past Tuesday, that's supposed to be coming to us next Tuesday on December 8th, going over the vaccine status and early deployment information. But then to really ask some questions. I think Clackamas County has been doing this very well. They've had a person, and they're different for different topics, facilitates the meeting. So it's very clear that this meeting, as role modeling for us, is about COVID and where we stand now and how we go through this together. But it is an opportunity, for example, for Commissioner Treese and Commissioner Rogers to share some of that anecdotal information about the business community and how the business recovery centers have been able to help different businesses, for example. So
I think you mean Commissioner Willie. Is that what you meant?
Yes, I'm sorry. I said that wrong. I'm pointing over to my Commissioner Willie box that's on my screen. My apologies. So thank you for catching that for me, Commissioner Treese. So that's what I'm thinking. We really did. I think the May 11th town hall worked very well. People did ask questions, and we had a tremendous turnout. We have had over 100+ people on Zoom. Then there were another few hundred people, Chuck said, via YouTube. So not everyone's going to be able to ask their questions via Zoom. And so we'll probably have to have an email address so that people can email their questions. And plus we can have them send questions in advance. And Philip read questions off with that May town hall, so that we do have a series of questions that get asked right on camera. But to me, the main point is making sure that we have this topical focused town hall and that you all have an opportunity to participate and talk and discuss and be in front of the public in a way that is timely, because you don't know until you're there. And you can count on me. If there's a question or a comment that you don't want to handle, you can just say, hey, chair, handle that. Or thank you, we'll note that and go from there.
And we give it
Other
to Elizabeth. Said, and we give those issues to Elizabeth.
Any other thoughts?
No, I'm glad we're doing this, and it's a timely date.
I'm going to say this. I think that given what we've seen in the media, we should have a plan in place for dealing with any trips outside of our county that may or may not have been taken. But I do think that we have. I want to be early thoughtful on those issues, because I suspect the questions will arise. And I hope I'm not stepping on any toes when I say that.
No, not at all. I unless something changes, I would respond the same way that I did to the media a couple of weeks ago. Make sure they have the dates correct, number one. And my own view is, we all need to be very careful personally to make ourselves safe. That's number one. And number two, we have to comply and should comply with the rules as they exist at that time. can't always anticipate what's going to happen a week or two out. This is a pretty fast moving event. We had canceled vacation plans earlier in the late spring, early summer because of COVID. So anyway, that's I don't feel apologetic. I feel good about what I did, and just call it that. And people disagree, that's fine. They have their opinion. That's all what politics is about. So,
Elizabeth, I see you. We're going to continue on with a little board conversation first. So, I've seen the articles that I've seen. I think Commissioner Schouten handled it very well, very positively. I mean, he had made a trip before the travel restrictions were in place. But as we all know, he has been very diligent about the protocols. He got tested. I really trust that he continued to operate safely. Similarly, Commissioner Willie went on his trip, and I trust that as he has done all throughout this year, really trying to be very careful about practicing protocols. And yes, the restrictions are in place, but we each have to look out for our own mental and physical health as well. So I'm not going to fault anyone for their personal choices. I think we each need to respect one another. I know personally that I've put some thought into this over the last few days, thinking about, it's driving me crazy to be staying at home so much. Yeah, I go for walks and I go for a bike ride on the weekends, but I really miss seeing my friends. And we had been making arrangements to go for walks outside. With these new protocols and the new gatherings, restrictions, I thought, well, is that not allowed or what? And I've been thinking I've been arguing with myself for the last couple of days. It's like, wait a second. As Marnie shared with us on Tuesday, we're very likely to be at extreme risk all the way through the end of the year. And it's not going to be very healthy for me to continue along a path of not visiting with my friends. But I feel I can do that if we're outside and we're all wearing a mask and going for a walk. And if that's not allowed by the extreme risk, then I got to figure out what's going to work for me. So while, the media is going to cover what the media is going to cover, and I appreciate that Commissioner Schouten has followed up to make sure that they have factual accuracy. Commissioner Willie, I'm glad that you had a nice vacation and that you're back. But onward, ho we go. I know we have the logistics set up so that you can do the proper quarantining to safeguard yourself and your family. And I trust that you'll do that.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, and we're all quarantined for 14 days as well. And we knew that coming back, that we were going to do that and agreed as a family. The interesting thing to me is, I guess I take the media for face value. And so I just consider what it is that they're trying to do. And they certainly don't try and spin a complete picture, but only something that they think will sell for people paying attention. Interestingly, though, my number one complaint is they can't figure out how to spell my last name. So I guess I'm going to have to go by Jerry Wiley from now on. So we're going to change all of our cards and everything else.
Oh, no.
Well, I have to say, in terms of Hawaii, we have some lessons we could learn from them. They have the best stats of any of the states, and some of that's just their own unique isolation and geography. But we were very impressed with the number of public messages regarding COVID and COVID testing sites that were available on the Big Island. We were constantly bombarded with public service announcements about that. So they do a good job with public service announcements, and they do a good job too with availability for testing. Apparently, you can, testing is much more available on the island than it is in the state of Oregon. So I don't know how that happened exactly, but that's the reality. They've done some good work in Hawaii.
Well, and I have to say too that I don't know how many they were testing, and I don't know their testing procedure in Mazatlan, but according to their statistics, this is a city of 400,000, they had 50 cases. And so you say, okay, are they really testing and looking for that, or are they being very, very efficient? On the flip side, I went through procedures both in going to eat and to get back onto our resort that I've never seen here in Oregon. Going through a sanitation station every time I left the resort and come back. I had to go through a sanitation station and sanitize my hands and walk through the little the shoe thing. There were several restaurants that had similar procedures. Not one restaurant did you go into without being sanitized and temperature tested. So, and of course, masks were just part of the normal routine, just like we experience here. So I was very, very impressed. We were still very diligent about what we did and who we were with. But I was very impressed with some of the procedures that they have put in place.
Great. Commissioner Scouten, did you have something more? Okay. Okay, well, back to the town hall then, the COVID town hall. Commissioner Treese, just mulling a little bit more on your comment. I think you are potentially anticipating that there may be a question that comes up there about travel, whether it's on past commissioner travel or as we move forward over these next few months, and is travel restricted and what happens if so.
And that was my point. And it was really much more about just being prepared. And I think I think we do better, anybody does better when we're prepared in these types of town halls. So that was mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that all of my communications with the media and other communications in any way that related to my travels to Hawaii, I copied Philip Bransford and all of that. So Phil Bransford is totally up to speed on all that transpired as far as media contact, et cetera, with respect to my travels.
Okay, well, Elizabeth had something to say. Is this with your GR hat on or your chief of staff hat on?
Chief of staff and town hall staffer. So I just want to get some clarifying questions. So I understand sort of next steps. Latricia and I have been meeting with the internal work group and we're moving along on this. One, I want to say, yes, Marcus is going to be facilitating again. And so we're very pleased to have him. Latricia and I have both been in touch with him and me as early as just this morning, right before the meeting. I want to get some clarity on the May town hall format versus the community investment conversations. During the May town hall, it was very early in our Zoom experience. We didn't have any public asking any questions versus the community investment conversations where we had both the written questions and then the timed public questions. So I want to see if we want to go if we want to do what we did in May or if we want to stick with the format from the community investment conversations.
What I appreciated about the community investment conversations is that staff was able to take those detailed questions from the public and take them offline. This is not that forum, okay? This is a public town hall. So I want to make sure that questions are captured and are brought into the town hall.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
We tried to put logistics together in advance of that first ever town hall to anticipate questions. And if we're able to have that means open for a week to capture people's questions and start from there, great. But we also need to respect the fact that there are folks who are going to view this via YouTube and not Zoom, and will not have the conversational opportunity that the community investment conversations logistics offered, which I thought were stellar, by the way. But this is a different forum altogether. And
Okay,
also,
thank you.
I think there's things to be learned from Clackamas County and keeping it simple.
Yeah, and in that first town hall, we did have GR staff answering some questions and pushing some forward to Philip, but we'll update that. And then I just want to also be clear for board members. I just want to. Am I hearing you don't want any outside speakers, but rather for board members to present the metrics? For board members have time to talk about what you've been working on related to COVID. So board members, not
I'm
outside
the most
speakers.
outspoken here. What I don't want is to have to sit through another public health, 15 slides of information, right? I'm I don't need to see another slide that presents the state stats, right? This is timely with regard to helping folks understand what the new metrics are. It's not that hard to present. If public health wants to present it, I'm fine with that, but this is not a town hall for public health, the public health team.
And so Commissioner Treese and Willie, would you like some time to talk about Business Recovery Center as sort of centering the work you've done during COVID? I'm seeing a thumbs up.
Yeah, I think we can give a recap. That's a good point, Elizabeth. I think we can do a quick recap of that, specifically probably about the 5.7 million we just got from the state, and maybe an overview, but relatively quickly, just a few minutes, I would guess, 5 minutes max.
And Chair, if you're comfortable doing the metrics, we can have public health on call so that if there's a question we can't answer that you want to pull them in. But if you're comfortable doing that, we'll just go with that. Great.
I think too, Elizabeth, that well, what's happened in the business world is in relationship to the CRF funding is important. I think there's other aspects as well. So I think there should be a quick rundown of what we've done with the CRF funding, and especially around things like daycare and things that get to the public. And I see Catherine knitting her brows. So I think, it should be very quick. I mean, I'm not saying that it's
we've got all kinds of information on our website for that, and
okay. Then I'd ask then I think we can do a very quick business focus. I'm just concerned about, talking about business and not talking about the other issues that have been addressed as well.
Well, our staff is working really hard to finish all those contracts to push the 104 million out in addition to the 55 million. We've asked them after the first of the year. Jack and his team are dotting the I's and crossing the T's on making sure all those dollars are accounted for. But we've also asked them to put together a report that talks about the value to our community. So I don't want our staff to think that we're rushing them and asking them to do it now, right? So
no,
we've talked about CRF deployment for months now, right? What I think the goals of this town hall is helping our community understand these new metrics, pivot towards these new metrics, and to just keep going. Yes,
I-
you can talk verbally about whatever aspects of CRF trip your trigger and what you're really proud of. This is a good time for you verbally to talk about how you've been involved with that. But I want to, oh, God, the word is left my brain. I want to caution us to get encyclopedic. That's what I'm really concerned about. We
I would
don't
think-
need to have
Well,
a whole bunch of slides.
I think that. Go ahead, Dick.
Oh, thank you. I would anticipate maybe, and I think maybe it would be most appropriate to hear from the public about how this is impacting them personally or their business, or how something is happening that isn't fair. How I mean, the matrix are broad stroke things. We're well aware of how broad stroke legislation that we necessarily have to adopt can't be nuanced and can be sometimes unfair as it falls on a particular family or a particular business or whatever. And I would certainly love to hear what people are experiencing, and if there's anything we can do to kind of sort of direct their thoughts and comments on up the food chain to Elena Horn and to the governor and all that. And had you thought about this? Is we're hearing this from people? This is what's going on in Washington County. Can we nuance this a little bit that still works, given that, you have to apply necessarily broad stroke matrices to the situation? I'd love to hear individual cases and anecdotal evidence and information. I think that would take notes on that stuff and think about it, get back to them, and kind of play that role of being a sort of a go-between, or being an ombudsman for our residents.
We had, as a group just yesterday, talked about having some kind of question go out to the public in advance of this to help sort of prime the pump. And we certainly can sort of put those kind of questions forward for them to be thinking about, if that's something the board wants. So sort of set the tone, if you will.
I like that.
This was super helpful. We're open to other information, but I think I got my questions answered. So thank you for the time.
Great. Another
If
check.
I could just ask one question, Catherine, what would happen if we get a question that's off topic? And I'm particularly thinking about Latricia. I'm assuming you're going to be on this Zoom meeting as well. What if someone kind of redirects a question to her and asks, okay, you've been given the charge of your equity office responsibilities. Can you give us an update or something like that? Are we going to allow that? Because to me, that would be very informational, but not COVID related. So
Right. Thank you for that. It's great to hear that you're interested in it. We'll take that as your comment of today and look forward to planning out some future community engagement activities into the new year.
Well, and that triggers a couple of other thoughts. Two big population groups that are impacted very heavily. I don't know what we want to think about there, but 15% of the population is Hispanic, but over 40% of the COVID cases are hitting that community. And then, of course, there's the issue of the folks who are older. A huge number of the deaths we're seeing are people in their 70s, 80s, and or say 65 on. So I don't know what our thoughts are about how we might want to be forearmed with knowing that those are two population groups that are particularly have been hugely hit, and some of that certainly falls into the bailiwick of equity, inclusion, and et cetera. So,
well, so a couple of things on that, Commissioner Schouten. With the new metrics, I challenged our CAO to work with her staff to make sure that they're working directly with community groups in servicing our diverse community members, and they continue to do so. they are fully authorized to have as many meetings as they need with all those organizations. They don't need our permission to, and they're doing that and moving forward. With our town hall, having language facilities for Spanish speakers is what we're able to pull off in this short amount of time. We do need to give Latricia and her team the opportunity to figure out more community engagement means for us as a board starting into the new year. I'm not asking Tanya to rush getting that done in time for us to have this timely COVID-19 town hall, given the new metrics. Also, what we have heard and continue to hear continuously from public health through our presentations in our business meetings, as well as our work sessions, is that they continue to track the outbreaks, particularly at long-term care facilities. They continue to work with our CBOs and our nonprofits to help ensure that elders are provided with their meals and the support, including mental health support, to get through this COVID isolation. And all of that work continues. So it's a really tough road we're in, and you know, I don't know if I'm what I'm trying to avoid is that we end up having a town hall for us to interact with the public displaced by a lot of presentation from us or our staff about what the county has been doing and will continue to do. But certainly the needs that you highlight are very real, and we continue to move forward with them.
I appreciate this
what
is going
you
to be on a
thought.
Saturday too. Having it on a Saturday opens it up, hopefully, to a larger community.
So I'm comfortable to speak to what, or to have any of you speak to what we know as commissioners has been happening and the great work that we continue to support through our staff. You know, and that includes the financial work that we were just doing this past Tuesday on organizing the financial funds to continue that $14 million of work that's necessary for the next 6 months to support our community. I think what I don't know at this point is if that's something that Commissioner Scouten, Commissioner Treese, and Commissioner Willie want to be able to speak to, or if that's something you would be relying upon me to address. I'm certainly comfortable with you guys handling that.
I'm going to stick with the business side of things. I'll let you deal with that, or any of the other commissioners.
Commissioner Scouten, do you have a preference?
I think we'll play it by ear a little bit. I mean, that's my feeling. I have a lot of confidence that all of us are pretty good at ad-libbing, but we can certainly look to you for additional support. We'll just see.
Yeah, but I appreciate how you've used that phraseology, because during the meeting, I do want you to chime in whenever and however you want. I'm relying upon that. So that'll be great.
I suspect it would be hard for any of us not to.
Well, I've watched, I haven't watched any of them live, but I have been following the Clackamas County town halls, and they do a good job amongst the 5 of them in contributing their thoughts. And I think it's been done quite well. Cool, great. We have the rolling agenda and syncing up on the ECDEV manager interviews. So which would you like to take first? The ECDEV one, I think, is pretty quick. Why don't we do the really quick one?
Should we
Um,
do a time check, Catherine?
Yeah, why don't we do this one and then head off to lunch and then come
Okay.
back with the other stuff? So,
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think I've communicated to Tanya that I'd like to be involved at least in the final interview stages of this, and at some point in time, we'd like to just see a snapshot of who has applied for this position. But I don't want to circumvent everyone else's involvement if they'd like to be involved in this process. So that's my only comment to that.
I would also like to have a similar type of positioning.
Yeah, my comment would be that we all remember the history. Jerry Willie brought this to our attention and has been integral in the entire process. So this really is a hire by the CEO, but with board input. So I would say that we need the board input from Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, just to say again, let's make sure that we are weaving our new commissioner-elect into this process, because this is going to be an overlapping activity and action going into the new year as well. So.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Rogers. It's definitely a hire for the CAO. From my vantage point, our involvement was really pivotal on the job description. And I made sure that in the early drafts where I saw policy being memorialized in a job description, that was removed because that was not proper. But I'm rock solid on the job description. Really appreciate Latricia's contributions and Tanya's contributions on that job description. I don't have any, I think it's great to have a couple of commissioners participating as the CAO would like. And am very comfortable with that. Once again, I rely upon the job description, but I think the CAO needs to make the final determination on who is hired so that it follows the board direction and has the level of skills and experience that the agency is going to need in the long term. So
I agree with that. Thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, my aspirations, hope on this is that we can hire someone as experienced and as professional, quite frankly, as we went through to hire Latricia. And that was certainly Tanya's hire. But we went through a great process. We got a great end result on that. So that's what I'm hoping that we get with the ECDEV position as well.
any other comments? Great, terrific.
Chair, can I just make a quick comment?
Yeah.
So I have just appreciated all the feedback and on the job description, because that has really helped solidify the direction of this position. And appreciate Commissioner Treese and Willie for serving on that committee so that we can continue that input. But I feel very solid in having a clear direction from the board based on the job description that we posted. So I think we did a great deal of pre-work to get us to this place.
Yep. Great. All righty. So the last additional item to the agenda that I think we want to get to next would be the rolling agenda. Then also we have another need to do today, and that's the salary commission stuff, and then try to pick back up with the budget items and so forth on the agenda. I think we have really great conversations and more flexibility for discussion in these roundtables than we ordinarily do in the staff-driven work session topics. So I appreciate all the conversations, Q&A, and back and forth that we're having. So given that it's the noon hour, how about if we break now and reconvene at 1 o'clock? Terrific.
One request, send us the link, because a different link this afternoon.
It's the link that what is ever on the website.
Yeah, would you send that? Thank you.
Yeah, yes, Commissioner Rogers, you were being sent that link and it is updated on the website for you.
Perfect.
Great. See you all at 1 o'clock. Bye-bye.